Welcome to Tech Talk Live. It's Tuesday, May the 26th, 9 p.m. in the DMV. I'm Sam Giacinto.
And 6 p.m. here in Los Angeles, I'm Jack Armstrong.
And before we get started here, Tech Talk Live is brought to you by AirPixels. AirPixels builds AI flight planning software that lets pilots pull off shots that used to take a full crew in 3 takes on film sets, over rooftops, or anywhere a drone needs to fly smart. See what they're up to at airpixels.com.
And today we're welcoming a special guest with us. We're thrilled to bring on Lena Thompson. She's a mentor for high-performing women in tech with 15 years of tech consulting experience. She's an expert in burnout. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me, guys. Good to be here.
No, and really happy to have you on. Because I think this is a topic, and not to cut you off, Jack, but I'm excited, and it's something that technology is very focused on the output, and it's very binary in results, and I think the human component is one thing that perhaps gets lost in either the solution at the very end of it, right, but also the inputs as well. So again, super happy to have you. And I'm curious to kind of dig into, you know, the human component more, because we talk about the technicals a good amount, as does everybody, right? Because it's more or less easy to digest and think about, and it's maybe not as abstract. I'm sure I'm echoing what Jack is going to say.
Yeah, speaking a lot to burnout and how that is impacting people. Like our tech is surrounding us. I mean, we bring on a lot of people who are building products and overwhelmed by AI and things. I mean, I guess with to put a pulse onto things, what are some of the ways that you're helping people address burnout?
Yeah, so I mean, we can look at it from so many different angles, and looking at it from side of technology, especially AI, because that's what most of us are using, whether you're in a tech or whether you're not even in a tech. Everybody's almost using AI, and what we are now trying to do, and that's what I see so often, is we like trying to keep up with the speed at which ChatGPT moves or Claude, and it was really here. Well, it is really here to help to make our lives easier, to create more gaps, more time, more space for us. But instead of taking the time, instead of being in these gaps, what do? We fill it with more things to do. It's like the mentality became, well, if I've got more free time, I need to do more, right? And then unknowingly we fall into the pattern, and it just doesn't stop. And then we just like almost like functioning now on autopilot. So, and we are not designed to function like this. When I was a computer programmer back in the day, to think about how you used to write a code, you put like your breakpoint, you debug your code, it crashes, you think about it, you contemplate, you take your time. Maybe you like just really conceive the solution, conceive your way out. You maybe go for a walk or you grab a drink. Now everything is instant. We have no patience. You just feed the data into the eye, you take the outputs, you put it out there, and it just becomes like a conveyor belt. So in that process, we really start disconnecting from our intuition, from what is actually right for me? What am I feeling in my body when I'm going through that motion, when I'm constantly on a fight and flight? And it's putting so much pressure on our nervous system. And whenever that pressure, when it's not released, and we don't release it because most of us don't even know how to do that, because we can't manage our emotions, we just stack them down over and over. Eventually that pressure over time, it explodes, and often burnout is the outcome. So that's what I actually see happens quite a lot now.
Yeah, so taking a step back, I guess, to just realize that things are going faster than ever with AI. Do you feel like people are, I don't want to say losing their mind, but losing their reasoning skills now with just relying on AI for like memory? Or because I'm using it more and more. Like I've been using I like kind of like Gemini more than ChatGPT at the moment. I feel like it just has a better context of things. But anyway, like I I mean, obviously before I would Google something, and now I'm, asking AI, what's up. But of course, taking it a step further, like AI agents are helping draft emails or do outreach. We just had somebody on recently, for, outreach tools, PR tools that kind of automate that process where before you'd manually do things. And I guess it is saving time, but is it like, is it rotting our brains, and how can we stop this, like, without stopping using it completely?
Yeah, and I mean the point is never to stop using it. It's an amazing tool, but it's like using it with awareness. And actually, I was listening to this podcast recently, literally saying how AI, and it's been proven by science, by medical research, is making people almost psychotic and also adds to depression. Because think about it. Let's say you are in an office and you don't like your colleagues or your boss, you think the environment is toxic. You go home and you go into ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and you tell them, it becomes like your friend, right? My environment is toxic. There's people talking to me like this, like what's going on? What does AI do? It doesn't really argue with you. It agrees with you. So what it does, it reaffirms your victimhood. So now you start kind of feeling even more like, you're a victim, you're entitled to feel that way. Whereas, let's say, if you maybe spoke to a therapist or even with a friend who's got some sort of awareness, they may kind of help you to shift your mind. It's like, well, is this kind of a pattern you see everywhere? Maybe it's like you changed your fourth job, and your fourth job, you're saying that it's the same toxic environment, toxic people. Well, if that's the case, then maybe something in you needs to change. Or if it's one off, well, can you see this as a growth? Can you see this opportunity? So kind of helping them to change the perspective, right? Because when we change perspective, we change our lives. We can still be in exactly the same shitty situation, but we can see it as an opportunity. We can see it as a possibility to get stronger, to get wiser, to connect to ourselves more, to grow from that. And I'm not saying stay in a toxic environment, but you can turn it around. You're like, wow, I'm growing. Maybe I'm not reacting as much anymore. So that's what normally, like, well, not normally, but that's what would happen in the past. You would speak to the therapist or somebody. Now you go home and you speak to somebody or to something that constantly agrees with you. And then what happens? You're like, you start fighting for your limitations more and more. You disconnect from the power that sits within you.
No, taking a step back, because I've kind of been a little bit pensive, because I'm thinking about something you said where, burnout is about something, in maybe an aspect of performance, right? It's about something that maybe you're doing something without, it's almost automatic, but it's taking a toll on you specifically. And I'm kind of curious if it's something you've noticed. And I'm speaking obviously from a place of privilege, but I think the appearance versus substance bind is something that uniquely impacts women in STEM, where you spend a lot of your time, thinking about how other people perceive you and how other people read you. Whether you dress it down, you over armor, you're not, it's this or that. It's the kind of a low grade, consistent stress that is maybe distinct from productivity based burnout, but it's just a constant chronic perception bias that you have to deal with and put up with. I'm curious, is that something you see a lot of, in terms of perception management, and how people have to sort of mitigate or otherwise deal with that in place of the work? Or is that completely off base or kind of related to what you've seen and experienced?
Yeah, it's completely related. We often associate kind of burnout with, I've got no energy, like I've got no, like I'm exhausted, I've got no motivation. It's like lethargic feeling. But the thing is, by the time it manifests externally, by the time we see it's like physical, reality, it's been building internally for quite some time, because the physical is just a reflection of our energy. That's it. It's like whenever we're running so depleted on energy, it's been already proven how it can lead to not even just burnout, but we're talking about serious like illnesses, like cancer and whatever, you name it. So when we are thinking, like, and to use your example, when we try to prove ourselves, to overextend ourselves, to people please, to do all of the things, we're literally going against our true nature. We are being who we are not, and it always takes a lot more energy to be who you are not than who you truly are. Just think about it, like even speaking to your friend or to your colleague, and you've got this point of view, and you've got to be right, and you've got to prove yourself. You feel mentally drained. How much energy does it take out of you? Or when you're trying to keep everybody happy, and the thing is, you can't even do that, right? It's not possible. Everybody's going to have different expectations. So it takes so much energy out of you. And you do that at work because you've got no boundaries, because you're terrified that if you say no, people aren't going to like you. You know, you are chronically, and that was my thing, like chronically afraid of disappointing people. And I really had to work a lot through that. So you carry this responsibility, you carry those obligations, you carry those expectations. And what happens, like you're literally running on empty. That internal energy, that life force that is here to sustain you, it gets depleted over time. And then, well, the outcome we already know. So it can come from so many different things, you know, like, but that kind of behavior is definitely one of the causes. Another one is, let's say, staying in a situation that you know isn't right for you, whether it's a relationship, whether it's the job. And a lot of us, we latch on to that safety, right? Because I would rather be in a situation that's familiar, even though it doesn't serve me, than take a leap because I don't know where it's going to take me. So we stay and stay and stay. And that's like, I overstayed in my career for years. And I mean, I had an identity burnout. I literally like, what am I doing with my life? So there's so many different aspects of it. But all I'm saying is that we shouldn't really look at the burnout through the lens of the just physical, but it's emotional, mental, and spiritual. And then eventually the physical manifests as a reflection of the internal states.
And you bring up an excellent point too. I think with stability can be very seductive, and how people, you know, you don't want to rock the boat, and it's the devil, you know, I think is where maybe that idiom comes from. It's something where the familiarity is enough to make up for, at least you're able to kind of rationalize that as something that, oh, well, you know, maybe, you know, I'm familiar with it, and that the fear of, you know, the uncertainty, you know, that fear kind of eclipses the, you know, I guess maybe the small amount of chronic stress that people are experiencing in that situation. And I guess a follow up too, I mean, for people who are in that situation where maybe it's two doors to the same problem, where you can either lean into the fact that, oh, people are going to, you know, take into account my appearance and the work I do and lean into it, or if you're not serious and you kind of downplay it, but people also reduce you to it in a similar way, you know, is there any way out, or is this kind of two doors to the same room, I guess, in that sense? Or what advice would you give to someone maybe facing that?
Yeah, so I mean, firstly, nobody can reduce you to anything. Nobody can hurt you. Nobody can do that unless you allow them to, right? And because if you truly believe that you're worthy and you're valuable, no matter what, regardless of your income, your status in a company, if you've got that kind of wholeness in yourself, nobody can hurt you. I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinions, and often, however they treat you is more of a reflection of them than of you, right? Like we know the saying, hurt people hurt people. But because we are so disconnected from ourselves, because that's how we've been brought up, you've got to put others first. Otherwise, you are selfish, right? You've got to like meet certain expectations. Yeah. And we just forget really, what do I truly want? What works for me? In even simple question like, what drains me? What energizes me? You know how many people I ask and I work with, what do you really want? They can tell me very in a very like lot of details what they don't want. But when we then ask them, what do you really want? I often get like completely blank stares. And think about it. Wherever our focus goes, our energy goes, and our energy is what creates our life. So if your focus constantly going on things you don't like at your work, on how whatever stuck you are, on things that are not working, things that you want to change, what are you going to create more? Where is your focus? Where is your energy going? So you keep on experiencing the same things, and that's why you can leave the job because you're feeling frustrated, whatever, it's not working for you, your boss isn't I'm not going to use the name. Your colleagues don't respect you. And guess what? You're going to end up recreating exactly the same situation sooner or later, right? And then that's why it's showing, something statistics are showing, like something over 70% of people who have a burnout, they will re-experience it again, more likely, because our attention is so focused on what we don't want. So my first suggestion would be, get very clear on what is it that you want in all aspects, not just in your career, because even if you have an amazing career, but relationship is breaking down, well, guess what? That's going to impact you. So take a piece of paper, take a pen and sit down and get crystal clear. If like nothing was a problem, if I could not fail, what would I love in my life? And go and write it down. And that is the life that you're meant to be living. And when you focus on that, burnouts just can't find you, just cannot happen in that state.
Yeah, this seems kind of like a self-identity crisis, if that's kind of a good way to put it. And so I'm curious though, like, so how do you tell the difference, for, whether you're working on, a project or something that you're deeply passionate about? What if someone's using their passion in work to define their existence? Is that like, would you recommend someone to take a pause back in that context? Like, because if it's not, like, I guess how does working on something you're deeply passionate about, how does that tie into your existence? And then, like, without the end result being like, I'm going to be overwhelmed, I'm going to be burned out. Like, does that make sense?
Well, I think so. I mean, the thing is, when you are passionate about something, and that's why connection to your bodies is the most important thing. And when you feel the passion and excitement and it's working for you across all areas of your life, then great. I mean, you can obviously still work hard, you can feel tired and exhausted, but more often than not, you're not going to have a complete kind of a collapse or like an identity collapse. You can't, because this is really what our lives are about, is to play to our strengths, to do things that excite us and passionate. And some people are very lucky. When I was back in IT, I used to work with a couple of people who lived and breathed coding. Like on a weekend, they will sit and like write like little, programs and games, and they would just get so excited about it and everything. And that's great. But they are not the majority. A lot of times we go to work because we've got to earn money, because, we've got to be respectful, because we've got obligations. And this is what just became our identity. I'm a parent, I'm a provider, I'm a husband, I am this. And it's a very limited, place really to live in. And also we believe that I can either have this or that. So I can have a great career, money, or I can, be free. But it's all of it. It's really just training our minds to see the possibilities, to see the opportunities that currently we cannot see, because we just keep on doing, keep on performing, and we're not really taking the time to reconnect with ourselves. But hey, if you love what you're doing, you're thriving, you're flying, amazing. You're definitely minority and you're the lucky one.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like sometimes it's hard for people who are very passionate about something to know how to set good work, to have a good work-life balance. I feel like it can be hard for certain people, because they can let their passion, their work, overwhelm them, when they should realize, actually I need to take some family time right now, or I did so much work already. I think if I keep working on this, I will burn out. Not necessarily even in a tech context. I mean, when you obsess over something, whatever it is, that's not a healthy habit or like a healthy, dynamic to have. So I guess, exactly. It's like,
that's where the awareness comes into, right? This is where it's like, I used to be obsessed with exercising. I used to run marathons and ultra marathons. My body started shutting down, and I pushed and pushed for years. It was my kind of outlet, my way of escaping the world that I felt so disconnected. So I would go for like crazy runs. So that was an obsession. I mean, nothing is wrong with running. It's really healthy for you. But when it comes from the place, I need to escape something. And that's what I would also really like to ask somebody who's that passionate and couldn't stop working. Are you maybe trying to escape something? Like, what is underneath that? What is driving that, right? Because action itself is never important. We can take any action, doesn't matter. What's important is, where is this coming from? And sometimes you're so passionate about what you're doing because you're avoiding something maybe with your partner. There's maybe some problems at home, so you throw yourself into your work. So what is this driving that passion? And that is the probably more important question to ask, rather than, well, how many hours I should work? What are you avoiding? And a lot, like, it's like same as, let's say, people who always want to help, but I love helping. Really? What's driving it? Are you just afraid you're going to be rejected, or somebody's not going to approve of you if you don't overextend yourself? What is driving that helping? Because helping is great, but when we overextend ourselves, it comes from lack, it comes from low self-worth. And same as with, being over passionate or over kind of working kind of thing.
I see what you mean. Yeah. I have a question. So going back to like ChatGPT and just kind of large language models and AI, because people do really go to them for advice, because, it is a good way to kind of throw everything. Maybe I know, maybe a therapist would be more appropriate or something, but are newer models, so ChatGPT has been out for a few years, are newer models helping have a little more reasoning and a little more like of an awareness into the context of, hey, actually you might be wrong? Like, do you think there are good ways this technology can like help people work through their problems, again, as one tool in the toolbox? Not, of course we should be going to therapy, of course you should be, learning relaxation techniques, meditation, and other things, but are the newer AI models, do you think, are they better at giving people more awareness than the older ones, or like less hallucinating? Like, do you find that going into the future, you think it'll be still something to worry about, or do you think the newer models are improving to a way where it can give people a better awareness than maybe AI always agreeing with yourself, like you had mentioned before?
Yes, I'm not an AI expert, but what I can say, there is some incredible coaches and mentors, but we're talking like world level, who actually have trained AI with their methodologies, with their, coaching style. Because let's say to work with them is absurd, like Tony Robbins. I don't know if you know, for example, like Tony Robbins, or, there's other people I follow and I respect and I value their input. But to work with them, firstly, they don't do one-on-one coaching. It's not possible. So you can pay like, crazy money to go see them for half a day, but you don't still get one-on-one support. So some of them have trained AI with their, as I said, thoughts, their beliefs, so thousands and thousands of hours. So I personally use it. I've got a called David AI, David Guillaume. He's a Kabbalah teacher, and I really respect him. And he brings wealth of spiritual wisdom into, and he's also extremely like very successful businessman. Him and his ex-wife built this like multi-million, maybe even close to $1 billion brand in liquid vitamins. So he knows what he's talking about. He's not some spiritual guy just sitting there meditating on a mountain. So I really value his advice. And I've got David AI. So if I have, let's say, questions about maybe my relationship or about a business, I will speak to David AI, but then still I'm using discernment. Whenever maybe he'll say something, I'm like, how does it land for me? How do I feel in my body? So if he gives me advice and I go, that doesn't just feel right for me, I will ask him maybe different questions, like, David, can you clarify? I'm like, David, why am I feeling this? It's just not connecting. So you can kind of, connect with them. But if somebody isn't aware, they may just like take this advice, especially let's say it's from somebody they respect or somebody they know, and use it, but that advice is not the right advice. So you always have to use that self-judgment, and that's where a lot of self-trust and self-connection comes into play. So yeah, by all means, you can definitely, because he's helped me through some really challenging times, the way like he'll shift my perspective. I'm like going, oh yeah, that's it, and that was amazing. But other times I'm like, it's just not right for me.
Yeah.
I think you highlight a good balance too between, still maintaining that connection with oneself and, self-spirituality with, AI as a tool, and not using it as a replacement for self-review, but rather enhancing it, still asking yourself the questions in some ways, and then thinking, it can be a stand-in for critical thought if you let it, but I think that's a good way. It's a way to augment and not replace, I think, if I'm hearing you correctly. And that's an astute way to use it as a tool, but not let it own the thought process, I guess, because then you lose that muscle. So but you can train it a little bit too.
It's like with your phone, the same thing. Like with the running, I was giving example, even with spirituality, with meditation. I mean, you can get obsessed. Like I used to at one stage meditate 4 to 6 hours a day. I was just trying to escape my thoughts. My world was just getting too overwhelming. Even that became an escape, right? So everything, it's like, where's this coming from? Do I really believe it's helping me to grow, to evolve my consciousness, to be of a greater service to, doesn't really matter, maybe to my children, to my partner, to the colleagues? Or am I just using it to prove myself? Or am I using it to escape something? Like what's driving it? And that's the really important question, is like not the action itself, but what's underneath that? What is the energy behind the action?
Yeah, no, it seems interesting. Like there's always a trigger to what we're feeling, and like if you can't address or pinpoint what's creating the response, that then you feel like you need to over meditate. It's like, I feel like that's what's more important, right? To go find the actual behavior to change, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah, exactly. It's just being really, as I said, like really aware of your reactions, of your actions, of your thoughts, everything. That's where that self-awareness comes into. And then when you're using AI or the phone, it becomes a tool, but it's not something that takes over you and your life.
What are your thoughts? I've been using a focus app because I acknowledged I was addicted to my phone and just checking it, and it tracks how often you pick up your phone. I know that it's built into the iPhone if you go to the screen time, but like this app just did a better way of displaying your focus, and you could like set different apps. It basically tracked your usage and gave you like a focus score. Is it bad? Like, I mean, I'm not saying it's bad, but like, should I learn the way? Because I've had friends be like, why do you pay for this, or why do you use this app? It's kind of silly. Like, can't you have the self-control to just not do it yourself? What would you say to somebody like that like is it my problem for not having the self-control? Should I have the awareness to be like, oh, I see my phone, I know I shouldn't pick it up? Or like should I feel bad for using an app like that's telling me and blocking things for me because I don't have the self-control?
Well, you're clearly aware that there is something there. So that's a great step. A lot of people would be completely on autopilot, not even aware of it. So, congratulate yourself for that. It's incredible. And you're not the only one. There's so many people, like that instant gratification, that instant hit. Oh, I wonder what's there. I wonder if somebody's looking for me. I wonder if whatever that is, right? But you've got to ask yourself, like, where's this coming from? Like, what exactly am I hoping to find in my phone? And it's not a lack of self-control, and it's just a pattern. Remember, like, we are literally a bunch of patterns that are running our lives. So maybe, let's say in your childhood, you didn't feel like you were getting enough attention, and now your phone is the way you're getting attention from the world. So that could be something to look at. And I mean, an app is another app. But what I would suggest, if you want to try that, just start small. Put your phone even away give yourself 5 minutes. That's it. And then congratulate yourself if for 5 minutes you haven't checked the phone, and then start building from there. But for some people, I know I had a very similar problem. And, even if I put my phone away, I'm like, oh my God, he's like reaching out to me. He's like, my mind was constantly on the phone, but I knew it had nothing to do with the phone. Phone is the thing. What is deeper underneath that? So I literally went into my childhood. I remembered, like, growing up in a Soviet Russia, and my parents were always working, and I never felt like I had attention. And it was just for me a way of getting attention from the world. So now I sometimes switch my phone for 24 hours. I'm just not going to talk to anyone. I'm going to show my nervous system that I'm safe without that phone. But it took me time to build to it. So it all comes down to safety. There is a part of you that doesn't feel safe whenever you're not interacting or engaging. And, you can just play with it and examine it. But if you really want to build to it, don't just chuck your phone and forget it. It's going to be too overwhelming for your nervous system. It needs that hit. It's like, you can't just, let's say, get off drugs immediately, right? You build up to it. Same with the phone. Just do 5 minutes and congratulate yourself. And that's the most important thing. Like, you go, oh my goodness, today I did 5 minutes. That is brilliant. And get excited about it rather than beat yourself up. Well, why can my friend do it and I can't? That's completely irrelevant. That's your journey. That's your life. You do you. But if you want to break through the pattern, all I'm saying is just start very small.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. There's a trend, a digital detox trend. I feel like we're seeing a lot more people, whether it's deleting social media accounts or trying to put their phones away. Is this driven by, do you think, more social media or more just like the constant bombarding, like you said, like attention from my friends texting me? Like, what do you think drives the digital detox movement so much?
I think it's different for different people. I can only speak for myself. Initially, for me, I would be too overwhelmed. And also, I was always expecting like the text or the message. I'm like, okay, I'm going to put it away and I'm going to not think about it. And I would force myself. And then by the time I have to put my phone on, my nervous system is in such a hard and I'm like, I wonder if there is a message. I'm almost like my whole body. Like, it took me a while to really understand what's going on. So that again remember, the action is not important. It doesn't matter. Like, you switching the phone on, detoxing, why are you doing it? So back then I was just completely overwhelmed and I was just trying to prove something. Now I just genuinely just want to be in my own space, in my own energy, without any bombardments. So again, it just depends. Remember, it's always the intention. What is intention? And if you, let's say, want to do it for that reason, just ready to cleanse and to be in your space, maybe to go meditate more, to read a book without distraction, then it's great. But if you're just running away from the world, you can't really run anywhere anyway. So
that's true. Yeah. No, it's so hard to just disconnect. I mean, I know, like, the app has given me awareness into how much I've, apparently I'm on track to regain 10 years of my life back, which is pretty crazy to think about just in the past year of using this focus tool. But no, I think I really did have a problem before, and now I'm even more aware when people around me are like on their phone in front of me, not giving me their full attention frequently. Like, I understand you have an important message come through. Yes, check your phone if you're on the train or you're kind of just like doing your own thing, or I don't know if it's a good time to check, then that's okay. But I think we all know it's not acceptable to be on at the dinner table on our phones, texting, just kind of self-absorbed. But I think, so many people have such a hard time just focusing. And I wonder, so I have a question about social media. Obviously, we've seen around the world, like teenagers and, the societal impact of addiction from our phones. And I think at a young age, obviously, is kind of when like you're developing this reliance on whether it's AI or social media or attention. What are your thoughts on some of the new regulations in like Australia and countries like this for kids? Is it just initial? What are some of your initial opinions on the age restrictions for specifically social media algorithms?
To be honest, I don't really have an opinion about it. I don't watch TV. I don't really know. I didn't even know about that restriction. I don't really think it's going to help, because it's like, you're trying to tell alcoholic, you're not going to drink wine or beer, whatever, booze in the house. My grandfather was an alcoholic. He'll go and find it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we trying to do? It's like we need to change the kids, or rather the kids, they really need to connect with something deeper than just something external, the phones. They've got to reconnect to themselves. I think introducing like mindfulness, spirituality, emotional regulation, things like intuitive development, that is a better approach than, oh, he's going to take your phone away and then, you're going to use it less. No, they're not. They're just still going to find ways. So, yeah, that's my view on that, at least.
I kind of agree with you because, yeah, people are always going to find a way. But I do think like the building blocks from a certain age, it's like, I guess they're trying to build the habits and delay some of that, maybe cognitively.
Yeah,
it can have an impact. I don't know.
It just reminds me, I had a friend, and when her kids were small, she wouldn't let them eat sweets. But when they went to the party, like my kids, let's say they will have normal sweets, these went ballistic, literally. And then they will bring them home and they hide them under the bed. And it was crazy because they were deprived. So why then, just as I said, we need to approach it from inside out rather than outside in. Whenever we're just trying to change our external without changing our internal, it's like rearranging chairs on a Titanic and expecting a different outcome. It's still going to be the same thing.
That's a good point. Yeah, your brain wants what it can't have, and it'll find a way to get it, and it knows when it's depraved.
More addiction, more craving. You just want to crave it even more. So when you get that far, your nervous system gets even like on a more, more high alert, because like, oh, finally I've got it. Right, and it's like, well, yeah, I have it. I don't have it. You kind of become more, relaxed about it. Now you have it. You're just going to maximize this thing before somebody takes it away from you. So yeah, I don't know if it's going to work fine, but I don't see how.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it creates more addicted adults, because from their childhood they had so many restrictions and parental guidance, and then now you just have, instead of learning habits from a younger age. I mean, I didn't grow up with social media algorithms. I think the older millennials, young Gen Z age group, they grew up as technology was there, but Instagram and Facebook weren't as big of a addiction and an attention seeker that they are today. So yeah, it's interesting now that we see certain countries limiting, the ages kids can sign up for things, and obviously trying to protect them. But yeah, I agree with you. I feel like they could still find a way, or into the future, if they didn't build those habits from a younger age, they might just become addicted later because they don't have the skills to handle it.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously great to have boundaries, discernment, but at the end of the day, it's like, if they want to find it, they will find it. So I just think we're always approaching everything from outside in rather than inside out. And until we make that shift, we're always going to be fighting the same battles, no matter what we do.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Totally. Sam, I think sorry.
No, I mean,
you were about to say something.
No, I guess one thing that's kind of been on my mind too, and I wanted to ask this before we wrapped up, is if somebody listening to this conversation recognizes themselves and kind of what we talked about or what we've discussed, I mean, do you have a first honest question they should ask themselves, or just where does that mental check start for people you've interacted with, or you've coached, or you've helped in your vast array of experience? I mean, is there one thing they can just sort of stop and say, hey, we like to make it at least somewhat personally relatable in that way. So is there a quick mental check they can be like, like that kind of sounds like me. Like, what should they be asking themselves right now?
Yeah. So like Kabbalah teacher I've mentioned earlier, David Guillaume, he always talks about pause, what a pleasure. So whenever we're in a scenario, especially, when we get reactive, when somebody we feel disrespected and want to get angry, you pause. So that already interrupts the automatic, pattern and the loop. So that takes you out of that reactive mode. And then you say, what a pleasure. And that sends a signal to your mind that you're actually in charge of the situation. It's not what a pleasure that you love the situation, maybe the crap situation, but what a pleasure means there's a growth in here, because life will always send you opportunities and people to trigger you, to show you where you are not free within yourself. So if you feel yourself getting reactive, whether it's in traffic, whether it's because of what somebody said and did, you pause, you say, what a pleasure. You acknowledge that this is here for you, to help you grow, to see where you are not free for yourself, and then you can respond or do whatever. So you go into every situation with more consciousness and with more awareness. And when you start pausing, it also helps you then to start regulating your nervous system. And the reason it's important is because when your nervous system is regulated, you expand that capacity to hold pressure, to hold more, the challenges that don't really affect you as much anymore. You don't collapse into pressure. You actually move through that. Just that simple pause, acknowledging, extracting an opportunity from the lesson, and then you can get back to the situation.
Great tip. Yeah, just hit the pause. It's you can do that in real life too. Hit the pause button. There's always an instant to react. And whether it be fight or flight, or I found this. It's great advice because I'm trying to implement that myself. Actually, it's just give yourself a few seconds before. Not everything warrants an immediate response, and in some ways, that pause can make it seem like make it not just seem intentional, but it's more intentional for you as well to kind of gather your thoughts before
exactly
saying or doing something.
And even if you react in the same way, at least you're doing it with a bit more awareness. And sometimes you can do 10 times, literally the same thing, but eventually you're going to break it. And you will find that situations that triggered you in the past, they don't have control over you anymore. And I mean, I always said that's the true freedom. When no outside event can really rattle you, can shake you out of your core, when you're so certain and stable in yourself. I mean, to me, that's like no greater gift than that.
So, Lena, for our audience, what are the best ways for them to stay updated with you, or socials? How can people follow what you're up to if they want to stay updated?
Yeah, just connect with me on LinkedIn. It's just my name, Lena Thompson, and that's as simple as that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today and coming on. It was such an insightful conversation. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. And Tech Talk Live is here every Tuesday with new episodes. Visit us on the web at techtalklive.xyz. Until next week.